Hello my beautiful friends, I am Chantel and welcome back to the Keikis channel. In this video, I'm going to share with you why your eczema related itching is so intense and irresistible. Once you know the underlying reason, you can take steps to stop it. Or at the very least, know that you are not crazy. When you can't stop itching, even if you are doing damage to your skin, it's really not your fault. You don't have a lack of willpower. The factors at play in your body are so strong that it becomes an addiction. Yes, it can become a hardwired physical addiction in people with eczema, all because of a dehydrated skin barrier. I will explain. Let's take a quick look at why humans itch in the first place. Then we will explain what's gone wrong in the process with people with eczema and what you can do about it. It turns out that itching is much more of a brain thing than it is a skin thing. Located deep in the most primal areas of our brain are the reward circuits, the same ones that light up with exposure from lots of good things like sex, chocolate, cocaine. Itching? Yes, itching makes you feel good for a reason. The normal purpose of this behavior is to motivate you to address something that is wrong, a threat to your skin, maybe like a spider that's about to bite or an offending plant you've come in contact with. Itching is a protective mechanism. Your skin is telling your brain you need to take an action with your hands to address the issue, by itching. When you do take an action by itching, the offender goes away, the brain gets a dose of a chemical reward. It's supposed to be a win-win. You take care of your skin, the brain feels good about it, and will continue that behavior next time the need arises. However, in recent studies, scientists documented the brain of eczema patients reacts differently to the sensation and reward of an itch, and this finding is very telling why you can't stop itching. There are two proposed pathways that scientists think are responsible for conveying the urge to itch to the brain. Researchers have observed that people with eczema differ than people without eczema in one of those two pathways. Let's see why that makes a difference in itching and makes it worse for eczema patients. To find the answer to this, we need to take a look at some human brains. In one very clever study, scientists were interested in people with eczema and how they responded differently in the brain to itching than people who didn't have eczema. The short answer is yes, they did respond. I just said that. But they don't know why. But the how is quite telling. It all began when a group of volunteers were placed in FMRI machines, which shows what's happening deep in the brain in real time. Of course, they were divided into two groups, those with eczema and those without. When scientists pricked their skin with histamine, a known chemical our body uses to signal the need to itch, the histamine activated the histamine itch response. It follows pathway number 1 to the brain. In both groups, the people responded similarly. By itching, the pleasure response was there, check for itch, everyone was fine. But then, here comes the breakthrough. They next used a prick of a known stinging plant called cowhage. Cowhage is another similar topical stinging irritant that signals the response of itching using pathway number 2. Pathway number 2 starts with special receptors found in our outermost skin cells, the keratinocytes. We have a lot of keratinocytes on the outer level of our skin. And in those keratinocytes is a receptor called PAR2. These receptors are unique because they are not activated by touch alone. They're activated by chemicals. When these PAR2 receptors are activated from cowhage, they produce a much stronger reaction than the histamine pathway does. They send signals to the brain on the second proposed pathway, creating an itch response. Along the way, they release multiple inflammatory communicators, other than histamine, that ramps up the urge to itch. The evolutionary purpose of this amplification on pathway number 2 is really what gets the attention of the brain to address the issue located in the skin, the chemical offender. It's thought that the PAR2 receptors are there to alert the skin to very dangerous threats like poison oak or poison ivy, not a silly fly or grass on the skin. In most people, the second pathway to the brain bypasses that pleasure response. After all, evolution would not want humans to be rewarded for coming into contact with dangerous plants. Just take care of the problem and don't do it again. Some very interesting things were documented in the volunteer brains of all the patients when the cowhage was given. As expected, the people reported stinging sensation and various areas of the brain went to work, addressing the chemical offender and the itch. What was super cool was the area closely related to memory also lit up, suggesting that human evolution has responded to help remember the stinging offender and avoid it next time. Meanwhile, back to itching. The fMRIs of the eczema patients told a little different story. While the usual pathways lit up, including the memory part from the cowhage prick, something very strange occurred that helps piece together this itchy puzzle. When cowhage was applied in the eczema patients, the pleasure center activated. This isn't supposed to happen. That means in people with eczema, when the second pathway to the brain by the attention-getting PAR2 receptors happens, the process makes a mistake and rewards the brain. Instead of avoiding the offender, the brain gets a pleasure cue, setting the stage for self-destructive itching. But wait, there's more. With people with eczema tend to have a lot of odd things going on in their keratinocytes, the cells on the outer skin barrier. Yeah, it's happening again here with the PAR2 receptors. In people with eczema, not only does the brain overreact and provide pleasure, there's more PAR2 receptors in these people. So it's a double whammy for the itch-scratch cycle. More PAR2 receptors and pleasure from the brain. It's really hard to stop itching. Geneticists haven't figured out the cause of that observation just yet, but the implication is clear as day. Not only do people have eczema have a strong, addicting response to itching, they have more receptors in their skin to trigger it. To make matters worse, people with eczema can become super sensitive to external triggers, producing an uncontrollably itching response. That is why a flare journal is often recommended by doctors. Did you come into contact with anything new in the last 24 to 48 hours? If you can find that link, then you can take control of this aspect of your eczema. Your body has become sensitized to something, and knowing what it is and avoiding it can go a long ways in preventing the itch-scratch cycle from starting and leading to a flare. Okay, well that's all that's going on the outside. What if you live in a bubble and nothing new touches your skin, yet you're still itchy? This is where we circle back to that dry skin connection, something all eczema patients have in common. This is where scientists turn to rats here to help us figure out why we have itchy dry skin. They took a group of rats, shaved their backs, and applied acetone to their skin. This creates dry skin because it dissolves away the oils that hold the skin barrier together, instantly causing water loss and dry skin, instantly creating itchy rats. What researchers observed was that there was a large release of histamine in the rats with the epidermal tissue. We discussed earlier that histamine stimulates one of the two main pathways that caused an itch sensation, so no surprise there. Then the scientists took it a step further and genetically engineered the rats to be void of histamine. No histamine anywhere in their bodies. They performed the same experiment with acetone, shaved rats, and they were still itching, even without histamine. It turns out that when cells become structurally deflated, aka dehydrated, they also release cytokines, which are chemical communicators that stimulate the other nerve pathway. Wait for it, pathway number 2, the one that the PAR2 receptors use. This pathway was just supposed to be for dangerous chemicals on a surface contact. Side note, in case you are wondering, we know that acetone does not stimulate PAR2 receptors. It's not a direct irritant like cowhage. Therefore, the stimulation of the PAR2 pathway from something other than acetone in this experiment. Okay, back to the itchy rats. What happened was when their skin cells released the cytokine in distress from becoming deflated, the chemical messengers took the second pathway to the brain, the PAR2 pathway, which we know gets a very addicting reaction. Therefore, because your brain is wired differently, chronic dry skin from eczema is constantly stimulating your brain in very powerful addicting ways that keep you itching, even if it's causing obvious harm. But now you know. That's why you keep itching even if your skin is raw and injured. So what can you do about it? First, obviously, keep away from things that aggravate your skin. But most importantly of all, really focus on keeping your skin moisturized. If you do notice that you have an area of skin that's getting itchy, apply an occlusive moisturizer that will seal in the water and the lipids. You can even place a wrap on it overnight and force some moisture in. It will help stop the histamine and cytokine release. You can break the itch cycle in skin with moisturizing. I'd look for moisturizers that are specifically formulated for eczema patients, because not all lotions are good at protecting the skin barrier. Many lotions are formulated to bypass the skin barrier and carry other active ingredients deep into your skin. You want the opposite. You need a cream that will sit on the surface and protect it. These moisturizers should be thick and probably not absorb all the way. These will be the ones to turn to when an area gets itchy. In order to avoid the itch in the first place, take care of your skin barrier by having good hygiene, avoid irritants, and lightly moisturize on a daily basis. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.